Hi, I'm Brian Kosoff. I'm a landscape photographer from Portland, Oregon. My work has been exhibited widely across the United States, and I'm very proud to announce that a show of my black and white work will be in the Phillips Gallery in Salt Lake City. The work includes images captured in Utah, as well as other parts of the United States and other countries. The prints themselves are archival carbon pigment ink on 100% cotton rag paper. The title of this photograph is Rainbow Plateau and Tower Butte. This half of the scene is Utah, and this half of the scene is Arizona. I decided to make it a very large print because it's a very large vista. It covers a very large radius of the border area, and there's a tremendous amount of distance between the front and the furthest points in the scene. I mean, it's many, many miles. And I wanted to be able to convey all the detail in there. This image was captured with a 6x12 panoramic film camera. It's scanned very high resolution, and that enables me to make a very large print from it. For my black and white work, I prefer film over digital because it has a much smoother tonal range. Almost all of my work, both color and black and white, is available in this size as well. This image is called Bonneville Salt Flats because that is where I took it. It's a simple graphic image. It's basically three tones, a light gray, medium gray, and a lot of very dark or almost black tones in there. I decided to contrast the very solid stillness of the mountain with the playfulness of the stars above. It's illuminated by moonlight, which under certain circumstances can actually look very much like daylight. This image is Castle Rock at Lake Powell. It's a location which I really love. Being a native of New York City, a place where you never see the horizon and you never see any kind of natural form that far away, seeing these vast distances has always been something of extreme interest to me. And you also get, with these kind of distances, a lot of changes in layers in the light, which is how you get shaded areas here, and then highlights, and then shade. To me, it just adds a tremendous amount of depth to a scene. And it's just an area I love to spend time in. This is titled Fremont Island, Great Salt Lake. I decided to go to a fairly long time exposure here to create contrasts between the sky, which has a much more aggressive apparent movement, the water, which has a more subtle appearance of movement, and the stillness of the island in between. And it creates a simple graphic effect of what is basically just a light, medium, and a black-gray tone. This is Monument Valley at night, a location that should be very familiar to people from this area. I decided that I would photograph it at night, and I did a very long time exposure, which allowed me to have a car driving the scenic route appear as a streak of light to contrast, or I should say complement, the streaks of light in the sky. This photograph is called Pet Area, and it was captured in the Bonneville Salt Flat region. There's a rest stop there that has this rather futile corral for you to walk your pets in to relieve themselves. And I had shot this originally a decade earlier, and was always just found the entire scene amusing, that in the middle of all of this nothingness, you have this rather useless fenced area. So when I was there on a trip more recently, I decided to photograph it again, but at night. I thought that adding the universe would make the scale difference even that much more absurd. So not only do you have this little corral in the middle of just miles of empty salt flats, you now have it under the universe as well. This is Field and Peaks. In the distance, I found out that that's Mount Helen and Mount Pennell. What attracted me about this scene is the degree of layers to it. I'm very attracted to fences, which just has one in the foreground here, very, very faint. But then you have a layer of trees. Then you have a layer of, I guess they're all mesas. And then behind that, you have two different mountain peaks, which are quite distant from each other. And then you have the universe. And I like combining all those little near to far and very far details in one photograph. This was done this year, just before we all had to lock down. This is the Great Salt Lake, actually one of the salt ponds in the Great Salt Lake. And I have the Salt Lake City, I believe it's the northern metropolitan area of the Great Salt Lake in here. And it was done at night. That gave me the ability to have the motion of the clouds against the stillness of the water and the stillness of this fence, as well as the appearance of the stars and the lights of the city. It's never work. I mean, it's what I mean. I was an advertising photographer for 25 years, and I started doing this. I mean, every photographer starts out as a hobbyist, and I used to do in New York urban landscape. Then it became my profession, and I shot still life for advertising. But then in my 40s, I started doing this again for myself, and I started exhibiting in a whole bunch of galleries in New York and LA and all over the place. And I realized that I didn't need to be tied down to a photo studio in Manhattan. I could actually go out and travel and do what I love to do. In 2002, I closed my New York City studio, and I've been doing landscape ever since. And some of these trips are 2 or 3 months long, where I'd be on the road. And, you know, it's, on one level, it's work and it's an effort. On the other level, I love it. So. And that's what I do. This image is called Columbia River 5, because obviously there are 4 more just like it beforehand. It's an area I've photographed multiple times. I go back to locations often, because to be in the right place at the right time for conditions that are appropriate for the image you're trying to produce is uncommon. So often I will go on the road, I will find a great location, I will scout it. That is, I will take compass readings, I will determine what kind of lens, even what time of the year. Do I want full foliage? Do I want snow? Do I want, empty trees after the winter? And then I'll come back then and photograph it. This is an area not too far from where I live. And this image was created because a friend of mine was he was curating a museum show. But there was one requirement for the show. All the photographs to be included had to be produced in a still camera using movie film. So I ordered a batch of the movie film, and as I was having my work in a show nearby this location already, this is Astoria, Oregon, which is at the mouth of the Columbia River, I thought, okay, well, I know this area is very photogenic. I'll bring this film there and I'll shoot. This is what I got, and it ended up in the museum show. This image is called Silos, and I've been told many times that they're not silos, they're granaries. But who wants to have a photograph called granary? So I call them silos. What was caught my eye here was the fact that it seemed to be a metaphor for family, just generations of family. I mean, these are the oldest ones, but they're the smallest. So I kind of see, I'm not sure if the progression by age of old to young or from young to old because of the size, but what really worked for me was that you have the vertical motion of the granaries contrasting against the, and they're on a horizontal plane, but also contrasting against the lines in the field and then the diagonals of the clouds above. And this was captured, I believe, in Manitoba, Canada. This photograph is titled 6 Rocks 2, because a decade earlier I produced 6 Rocks 1 in the same exact location. However, that particular time was during a quite nasty storm, and I could never see past these rocks. I never knew that there was such a lovely horizon behind them. Well, this is a very super clear day in Iceland, one that we hadn't experienced in the few weeks we were there, and the conditions were just perfect. I originally thought that these rocks were quite small, and it turns out they are very large, as evidenced by a bird being very, very small in the distance there. This photograph is called Pilings with Bird. I captured it in Washington State. And what attracted me was that in the fog, these poles got progressively fainter and fainter in the distance. And the reflection of the water in the water was quite subtle and beautiful, I thought. It was a very minimal scene. And I was all ready and set up to expose film, and a bird landed on one of the posts. And at first I wasn't very happy about that, because here I had this very, very minimal scene, and now I have a bird flapping its wings and such on it. I quickly came to realize that it's the bird that completes the photograph. This image is titled Obstacle. Now, ordinarily, I use much simpler titles for photographs. I'll call something, tree in a field. In the case of this, though, I really felt there was a metaphor here for literally an obstacle and working your way around it. This was captured in Tuscany, where such empty scenes with beautifully placed trees are quite common. This photograph is titled Lochlan, Scotland, which is where it was captured. I wasn't intending on doing any photography that day. I was actually doing my laundry. When I stepped out of the laundromat after having just put my wash into the washing machine, there was a rainstorm and there was very dramatic lighting. I hopped in my car and found access to a nearby beach and started doing photographs. But I had already set my watch to time the washing machine, so I would know when to put my clothing in the dryer. So as I'm shooting this scene, my watch goes off and it's back to the laundromat. Clothes go from the washing machine into the dryer, run back to the beach, and shoot it again. It's a good thing I draw my clothing in a very low setting because it gave me more time to do photography. This photograph is 6 poles. This was captured in Colorado. I was driving along the road and saw these beautiful sensual curves in the snow. And then the contrast of the almost black poles and the beautiful sort of complementary curves of the wires. This image is titled Mars Descending. What first attracted me to the scene was the relationship between the 3 groups of trees, the fence in the foreground, and the various contours of the hills. I knew that twilight would be the best light for this, but I was not expecting to see the planet Mars in the sky. Having done a lot of night photography, I knew that a long exposure would create a streak of light from the motion of the Earth. I was very fortunate, however, that the motion led into the middle of the photograph, which drew your eye to the middle of the photograph instead of out of the photograph. This is titled Tree and Vineyard. I did not come up with a snappier name for this one. And this is done in Tuscany, in Italy. This kind of thing is all over the place there. They just have trees in the most beautiful locations in the middle of vineyards. And the lighting was right and the composition was right for me. I just feel so inspired in Italy that I had to produce something. I hope you have a chance to view the prints firsthand, as well as some of the other wonderful works here at the Phillips Gallery. If you prefer color work, please ask a Phillips art consultant to view my color portfolio. Thank you.